Hello everyone, we are live again for another author live chat with friends Tuesday series in 21st December 2021, 8 p.m. PST. We are live again on Facebook page and Tuesday is actually a day that's dedicated for fiction books. So you will be finding your next page turner hopefully through this series. So today we have author Jaskaran Chahal, and we're going to talk about his book Seven Doors to Salvation. Now, a little bit about the author before we bring him to the screen. Jaskaran Chahal was born in the state of Mississauga, Canada, and raised in the city of Brampton. As a teenager, he started to develop an interest in writing from taking high school courses related to history, law, politics, religion, and philosophy. Jaskaran graduated from the University of Toronto with an Honours Bachelor of Arts degree in criminology and socio-legal studies, with minors in history and sociology. Since then, he has also attained a Bachelor of Education degree and a Master's of Education degree from York University. In 2021, Jaskaran finished writing his debut novel, Seven Doors to Salvation, A Tale of Darkness and Light. It's a story about staying hopeful whenever the weight of the world is pushing you down. Jaskaran's interests outside reading and writing include cinema, hip hop, gaming, and fitness. So you can also check out his blog site at jazzywritesblog.com, Jazzzy writes, WRITES blog, blog.com, jazzywritesblog.com. So without further ado, let's welcome him to the screen. Hello there. Hello, Justin. How are you?
Hi, Justina. How's it going? It's nice to meet you. I'm doing good.
Awesome. I'm good as well. I'm so glad to be meeting you today on the show. And it's actually not 8 p.m. because we're doing this earlier, so it's 6 p.m. right now. But nevertheless, I'm just very glad that we are able to make it today. And so yeah, I actually briefly introduced yourself a little bit, and so I think it'd be good to have you say a few things about yourself to the audience out there.
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. How's it going? My name is Jaskaran Chahal, and recently I published my very first novel called Seven Doors to Salvation: A Tale of Darkness and Light. And my writing journey kind of starts about a decade ago when I was in high school. Around grade 11 or 12, I wanted to do a major project related to writing. And I knew I wanted to write a book just because with writing, there's no greater achievement than really putting out a book for people to read all over the world. And I started a little bit in high school. In grade 12, I had a few pages written and maybe like even a chapter or two. But I would always doubt myself, and I wasn't as confident as I wanted to be in terms of putting out the content that I wanted. And then over the years, as I went to university, I kept up the writing on my social media and on my blog site and things like that. But still, I always had that desire within me to put out a novel. And when the COVID pandemic happened, in March 2020, the whole world was on pause, and I had a lot of free time more than ever before. And I thought this is the golden opportunity to finally sit down and to finally get this book going. No excuses, no more delays, no more distractions. I'm just gonna make a goal and I'm gonna follow it, and I'm gonna, keep going until it's ready for the world to read. And I'm at the point now where it's been out for a week. It came out on December 13th, and the response has been amazing so far. And that's why I'm happy to get the word out to the people who are listening or the people who are watching, people who are following me on social media. It's been a fun ride so far, so I'm just gonna keep the momentum going for the next few months or so.
Awesome, right. Now, you mentioned about your blog, right? I think it is pretty interesting because many writers actually start out as bloggers, and I personally can actually relate to that journey because I write on my blogs as well, and and eventually that's when you get ideas to write books. But writing blogs, it's always an interesting journey, right? So, when you were writing, probably you're still writing blogs. Um, do you have an audience like that you connect with and you interact with? Because it's always a very interesting world out there to connect with bloggers, fellow bloggers, especially.
Yeah, it was tough. It was just like in the beginning, I wanted to create like a site because I had all these things written down in like, Word documents in like folders or stuff on my phone. And I wanted to create like one website where everybody can access it at any time and they can go back to it whenever they wanted to. So I started out writing small posts. Some of it was poetry, some of it was about film, some of it was about different things about my family history. When my grandma and my grandpa passed away, I write a commemoration post for them to keep their memory alive. I had one post about my great grandfather who fought in World War II on it, and I uploaded his documents. So I gave everybody a good picture about my life. I gave everybody a good picture about the things that I observe, with my own eyes, the things that are going on in society, the things that are going on here in my city of Brampton. I just kind of wanted to paint a picture for everybody, and I wanted to make it so that it was accessible. That if you were to go to my blog site, you would be able to pick one thing to relate to or another. And even if you don't like one thing, you still had something else that you could look forward to or you could read over and over again. Yeah.
Right. And coming to Seven Doors to Salvation, I have this your Amazon page up here, right? So, transitioning from being a blogger to a writer to an author, when did that happen, and how did you get the idea to to write in the first place, like to write a whole book?
Yeah, good question. And I mean, I wanted to do it for a long time, but again, I kept delaying it for so long. And then when I finally sat down, I think it was around May of 2020. It's an interesting story. Like I think at the time, I was living, with my parents and my brother, and my parents they went to India at a wrong time, and they got like, they had to stay there because the flight stopped coming back to Canada. So, and my brother was working at the time as well, and I was mostly at home because I work in a school setting. I work in a high school, and because schools were closed from March to September, like I was at home with a lot of time on my hands. And I was like, I need to do something. And this was the golden opportunity for me to start writing the novel. And I started with, a paragraph, two paragraphs. Those paragraphs turned out to be pages. And then I created an outline, and I had the entire outline done from like, what I want to write about, from like the prologue to the middle chapters to the epilogue. And I wanted to write about a topic that a lot of people could relate to. And I thought, what better topic to talk about than like, mental health and depression, because no one's really discussing those things right now with the ongoing pandemic. You'll see like, a news headline here or like a statistic there about how rates are rising, about like, depression and stuff like that, but no one will actually kind of sit down and talk about it. So I wanted to make that the central focus of this novel, and I incorporated a lot of themes that are related to that topic within the novel itself, different angles how you can approach mental health, from like, traumatic past experiences to feeling guilt to suffering some kind of like, post-traumatic stress. I wanted to include a lot of things in this novel, and I didn't want to write like a textbook. I didn't want to write anything like, non-fictiony. I wanted to take a topic, like mental health, and put it in a novel, fictional story, so you follow the character's journey from start to finish.
Right. I mean, excellent, because I think you wanted to write about mental health, and I think it's just the right time to write about that topic in particular, because I think a lot of people were really affected by, by the pandemic, and it probably was the high time to talk about mental health. But what's interesting is your take to put it in a novel or put it in a story form in order to raise the awareness on mental health. Right? So why fiction? I mean, normally people would actually do it like non-fiction books. But what's your take, or is it that fiction is something that's more that's closer to your heart?
Yeah, good question. I feel like fiction is one of those genres where it's like it plays out like a movie in people's heads, whereas like nonfiction is more so like give us the facts, give us the information, give us the percentage and the statistics. So I wanted to craft something that was like a movie that plays in your head from start to finish, and it's written in the first person perspective. So you're literally in the main character's shoes as he endures this journey from start to finish, and the story takes place with him landing in a place he doesn't know where he is, and he has to relive certain memories from his past. So you'll be seeing memories from his childhood all the way to adulthood, essentially from ages 12 to 32, and it puts you right in his shoes from using the first person perspective. And I wanted to do that because I think like the younger generation, they would rather prefer fiction over nonfiction because they're so bombarded with non-fictional news headlines and articles and TV headlines all the time. So I wanted to create a fiction for all age groups, from the younger kids to teenagers to young adults to older adults to seniors. Like I didn't include any like vulgar or like explicit language within the novel, so the message is understandable and digestible for a lot of people. And I wanted to take that approach. So I wanted to make the book as accessible as possible for as many age groups as possible, and that's why you see that the novel is also included in 4 different formats. So I wanted to include every format as possible. So you got like the Kindle ebook edition for those of you who like having a digital library, and we have the paperback hardcover. And then I just produced the audiobook version a few days ago with the help of an experienced narrator named James Lawrence, and he took the entire novel and he narrated it with meticulous experience, and he really brought the characters to life. So I wanted to include all of these things within this fictional novel that I produced.
Right. And we have this Amazon page over here being displayed. And you know the story. I think Danny is the main character in the book. I believe is that right? Am I right to say that?
Yeah, Danny's the main character. Yeah.
And he loses his he wakes up in an unfamiliar place one night with no recollection of anything or anyone. And I think that's where the story develops, and he has to conquer his inner demons that have plagued him since he was a child. So I think this is a little bit of trying to identify your trauma as a child. I think we all have that, and we still struggle with that, right, as an adult. So is there where you get your inspiration to read such stories?
Yeah, so the inspiration I drew for this character, I mean, so Danny's like he's like a courageous, kind of sensitive main character. Like he's a nice person, but he's really lost, and he's continuously questioning his purpose, what he's doing on this planet. He's continuously asking these deep questions. And I drew these inspirations like from my own life, from my parents' life, from my friends' life, different relatives, different cousins, whatever inspiration I could draw from different people, I drew it in because I said if I want to write a novel about mental health and I want to write a story about depression, I don't want to just include one aspect of it. I want to include several aspects that could be linked to mental health and depression, and I want to put them in this novel because if you're not able to identify with one of those themes, you'll be able to identify with another theme. So, for example, this character Danny, he wakes up in a place where he doesn't know where he is and he has no memory of anything. And another character, he helps him recover his memory by reliving his past memories. So the 7 doors, from the title, 7 doors to salvation, the 7 doors represent a his opportunity to walk through these individual doors to experience one of his past memories and to regain his memory and to learn a life lesson along the way. So, for example, the first door, I won't give too much away, but the first door is him dealing with the traumatic experiences of growing up with an alcoholic and abusive father, and the other character helps show him the brighter side to that, right? So while he may have gone through some troubles and some hurdles with his father, he still had other relatives and he still had his mother to take care of him. Or like the next door, for example, talks about how he was doing poorly in high school. He felt like a failure. He felt like he wasn't going to make it anywhere. He felt like, he didn't have anybody to look up to. And then again, the secondary character helps him see the best of his ways and the best of his situation, and to reinforce the fact that whenever bad time happens in your life, that a good time will also follow, even if it takes a while to arrive. So there's actually seven of these instances in the story where you follow the main character of Danny reliving those traumatic past experiences, and one by one, he gets to see the positive side of those memories, and then he kind of gets more motivated, and that sense of hope that was so small starts to expand within him, and he becomes a more hopeful person by the end of the novel.
Awesome, right. So I am actually particularly curious about the different kinds of mental health issues that we face, and um, you spoke about depression, you spoke about various other themes, right? So what are the other themes, and what aspects do you actually incorporate and into what storyline or into what point where you incorporate. So probably we can get a glimpse of what are there in the book.
Yeah, so there's many themes within the story, right? So I wanted to cover as many themes as I could. So there's themes related to trauma or post-traumatic stress disorder like PTSD. There's a theme related to isolationism, like when you keep yourself isolated from others around you, maybe you barricade yourself in your bedroom, you don't talk to anybody, you feel alone. There's themes related to a sense of loss, a sense of guilt that really consumes Danny at one point. There's another theme related to friendship. When his former friends, they end up hurting him really badly, and he has to find new friends to kind of regain that sense of confidence. There's heartbreak within the novel, with a chapter related to him and his girlfriend at the time. There's various themes that are covered within each chapter, and various life lessons to be learned from each hurdle that he has to cross over. And I just wanted to do this just because I feel like if you focus on one aspect too much, maybe not everybody can identify with that one aspect. So I thought it was the best option to have multiple aspects related to mental health and put them in the story so that you would be able to identify with at least one of them.
Right, right. And um, now coming to the storyline, and I believe that it's not easy to develop a character who has PTSD. And now when you're talking about PTSD, um, you really need to know about how the mental aspect of that person, and how they think and how they get triggered. It may not really be the same as the other people who are not really having severe mental health issues, and probably we are all affected by stress every now and then, but I think it's just not the same as someone who really has severe issues. Now, how do you actually go deep into researching, probably analyzing, or probably you have someone in your life that you came across that are suffering from these issues? So tell us a little bit about that. I think it's pretty interesting to learn about that, because when it comes to a story, right? I mean, you've now put it in a story form. It is much easier, I would say, to understand, because it flows like a movie, like you said. But I think the details of it also need to be really precise in order to bring that impact out of that entire novel.
Yeah, like like for example, the example with the first chapter with the PTSD, like growing up with an abusive, like alcoholic parent. I mean, like when you're a kid, like you remember a lot of how your parents played a role in your life. Like they're supposed to be your top role models in life, like your first two role models. And if one of them isn't treating you the way that you expect, or not treating you with respect, even if you're like 4 or 5 6 years old, these things really have a great impact on your life, and you tend to remember it for the rest of your life. I mean, my parents are amazing, right? I have no issues ever with my parents. Like, they're like my perfect role models. But I know this story plays out in a lot of families, including like relatives, families, my friends' families, where they didn't have that support system as they were growing up. And for example, like if you grow up with like an alcoholic dad who'd rather prefer booze over showing their kid a good time, or showing their kid some life lessons, or instilling some discipline in them, it seems like it's easy to forget, because a lot of people will downplay it and say, you know what, like, you were just a kid, like, who cares, or like, what is it to you anyway? But like, I've seen examples of people in their 30s, in their 40s, and their 50s. These kind of stories, they don't leave them as easily as you think they do, because when you're young, a lot of the stuff that gets implanted in your mind, it tends to stay with you. So the first chapter alone, I think it starts out pretty strong, and it kind of gives you the foundation of, like, Danny has had a rough life, like, from the beginning, starting with his dad. So that's why I wanted to bring that topic up as soon as I could, just because, like, within, like, for example, the Indian South Asian community that I'm from, in Brampton here, a lot of families go through the same suffering, where the fathers, especially now with the pandemic, there's been a rise in alcoholism, in domestic abuse, in these kind of issues are not really being reported by the news. And I felt like it was super important to add this in the novel, just because there's a lot of people going through these problems, and there's some people who are able to get over it, um, and that's awesome for them. But there's some people that these issues stick with them for the rest of their life, and that's why I wanted to include that aspect in this novel.
Right. And okay, so over here, we have your your blog site over here, and we can see your novel, the link to audio novel, and this is an excerpt from your book. So, and this is also the another excerpt. So, I believe this is where you share about your writing journey, and I think you have pretty much, yeah, several things about yourself as well over here, which is a great place, I think, to share about yourself as an author, right? So tell us about the support that you have received so far from the writing community, or even um, from your family and friends, and the kind of support and the kind of feedback that you've gotten for your
Right,
book.
yeah. So yeah, the book came out last Monday on December 13th, and ever since then, it's been a very positive response from all age groups, from the young kids to teenagers coming up to me. I work in a high school, so just before we got dismissed for December break on Friday, a lot of teachers showed support, just because they like seeing students that were once in their school are now kind of giving back to the community by producing this kind of product. So they really liked it. Of course, friends, families, relatives, they're always going to be supportive. And at the same time, I feel like I'm opening doors as well a little bit, because a lot of people are really scared to write. A lot of people are really scared to publish, and I'm just kind of showing them, like, what, like, even if you have a story, even if you don't think it's the best story, or if it's not like a long story, or it's not the way you want it to be, like, self-publishing is a very good route to try to experiment, to take risks. I want to encourage people to find their potential, and I want to, kind of motivate people to, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes a day, if you write something, even if it's in a notes application in your phone, you're still technically writing. A lot of these blog posts that you're showing on the screen right now, they all started on my phone. Like, maybe I was on the bus, or maybe I was sitting in a car, maybe I was sitting outside, and I just thought of something and I started writing it down on my phone, and then I just, like, put it on the blog. But I want to show people that if you have an idea on your head, you can turn it into a book, you can turn it into a novel. If you want to, like, make a song, if you want to make a movie, documentary, all it takes is a little bit of time and effort, and with that you can achieve anything that you want to. And that's the message I want to send out.
Right. Awesome. I think you have people over here who are commenting, and so far with regards to your book, I know it's just like probably a little over a week right now since it's out. But what are the feedback that you've received so far from those who have read your book? Probably your immediate family members, I am guessing, they are the ones to, read your books first.
Yeah, so I mean, like before publishing, like I printed out a few copies just to get a few beta readers, and they all enjoyed it like from the beginning to the end. And of course, I took a lot of feedback in the months prior, all the way back dating from August. So August, September, October, I was just kind of editing. I was moving parts around. I was making sure it flowed smoothly. And once I got the green light from the beta readers, I gave it to my family and a few close friends, and they also gave me the thumbs up as well. They said, "Go ahead with this. Like this is a good project to put out, especially now more than ever, right?" Like I didn't want to time it with like a global pandemic, but it just happened to be that way. And I guess like it kind of worked out for me too, because it's like this is a book where a lot of people can use right now, especially here in Ontario, where we're seeing a spike in COVID cases and lots more people are starting to stay home. That also worked out for me. But the response, it's still only been a week. I know there's a lot of like people that read fast, some people read slow. So I think over the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'm gonna get more of an accurate response from more people. But from immediate friends and family, they really enjoyed it, like genuinely. And I told them to be brutally honest. I said, whatever doesn't work, like tell me, because I'm always open to criticism. And they told me the things that worked. They told me the things that didn't work. So I changed it up in the past few months. But yeah, since it's only been out for a week, I've been trying to promote it as best as I can. One of the drawbacks of self-publishing a book is that you don't have a huge marketing team behind you. You have to do all of it yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been pretty active on my Instagram page, which is jaskaran.c, and I've been active on like Facebook. I try to do like some radio advertisement. My dad's rewards night for one of his jobs last week at some party. I gave a speech. I came on TV as well, like a local news channel called Omni TV. I just had another interview today with another local channel, like in Punjabi for TV a few hours ago, and I'm doing this interview with you now. So I'm putting in the work to try to spread the message as far as I can. I got a few more radio interviews coming up from like the West Coast in Canada, from British Columbia. So we'll see how that goes. But that's been all part of the process, right? Whenever you create something and if you truly believe in it, like you'll want to spread the word as far as you can. And another big achievement I'm trying to do is trying to get the paperback version out in India at the time, because with Amazon self-publishing system, they allow you to distribute the ebook version in India, but they don't have paperback or hardcover production there. So I've been communicating with the self-publishing company in India based in Chandigarh, and they're basically gonna get the novel up and running within a week or two over there as well. So I'm working on many different things at once, just trying to get the word out by myself with their help of friends, family, all this kind of stuff. So it's been a fun ride so far.
Awesome, right. So I believe that you actually self-published this book, and it is always not easy. When you choose self-publishing route, but I think it's also very liberating, and it gives you a lot of control over your book and how you decide to market, or what kind of pricing you decide to go with, and things like that. But it also comes with a lot of challenges, a whole lot of challenges in terms of branding, because I think if people do not know you, and people people don't know you as an author, as a person. I think it is difficult for them to get to know your book, and to even pique that interest to read your book, right? So, how do you work on branding? Like, I think it is easier for people who are like, for instance, you're talking about mental health. People already been in that mental health arena, like, talking about mental health for quite some time. I think they kind of like, they are like a well-known personality in that field, and that would make them easy for, in terms of marketing. But, for someone who's new, it is not as easy as that. So how do you work on that?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. And like I definitely weighed both options before publishing, right? It's like, do I want to go the self-publishing route or do I want to go the, traditional route? And I really like the fact that, with self-publishing, you really do own all of your work, right? Like if I ever want to make a change on the inside interior of the book, I can make a change. If I want to change the cover, I can do it myself. I control like the pricing, and there's a lot of control that goes in with self-publishing. And I was always a fan of that because the world has changed now, right? I mean, like back in the day, if you wanted to make music, you'd have to approach a traditional music label. Or if you wanted to make a movie, you would have to approach a big Hollywood studio. But now with music, you can upload your content onto Apple Music or Spotify. With movies, you can approach third party producers like, Netflix, Amazon Prime. And same thing with books. I mean, back in the day, the only way was to approach traditional publishing, and for that you'd have to wait many months, and they had a lot of control over the product. But now with self-publishing, I feel like the ball game has changed, and just like it's changed with music and movies, with like digital streaming, the same thing has changed with books, and you just feel like you have more control over your product than you would with a traditional publisher. So I always like that aspect. I always like the fact that, like, I can change anything at will, and I feel like I'm kind of responsible for my own marketing, which makes me work harder because if there's another company doing all my marketing for me and kind of raising the word, I feel like I'm not putting in that personal work myself. And I feel like, it makes me work harder this way. And it makes me approach more people. It makes me talk to more people. It makes me put myself out there because a lot of authors, they have a lot of books on the shelves, but when someone picks it up, you have no idea who this author is. You have no idea what their values are. You have no idea how they even look like. So I made it my mission. I was like, I'm going to put myself out there as much as I can so people know my face. They know how I sound. They know what my message is. And I've been just going with that for the past week or so. And I intend to keep doing it for the next, few weeks to few months as well.
Awesome, right. I think it's definitely a challenge because when you start out as a self-published author um, without having any connections with the writing world out there, in terms of friends from the writing world, I think it is difficult to brand ourselves. But I think it's just the journey where we choose to consistently and actively promoting ourselves and putting ourselves out there. And I think consistency is the key over here because without that, I think people would eventually tend to forget us, and you will just lose the attention of people from the mainstream media, social media, mainstream media, and things like that. So,
Yeah.
and coming to the book, right, just current, do you have any ideas to write further books, like maybe volume two? Do you have any ideas?
At the moment, I just wanted it to be like a self-contained story from beginning to the end. And I didn't really have any, thoughts about turning it into like a series or like an anthology or anything. I just wanted that if this is my, first and last book, that it would have the same impact as if I were to create like five or six of these. So I feel like this book definitely, like, I poured my heart and soul into the words on these pages, and I feel like it definitely gets my message across the way I want it to. And in the future, if I do write, like another, book or another part, I feel like it wouldn't be connected to this book. um it's like, when you watch a movie or you watch a show, and they just keep making like, prequels or like, sequels or an extra part, and then you kind of say like, the original is always the best. So I wanted to stick to that route. I wanted just to be the one and done book about this topic. And if there's a demand for it in the future for something more, then of course I'll be willing to look into it. But for the time being, this is the one book here.
Right, right. And okay, talking about depression, because I know I just scrolled through your blog site, and depression is one of the most painful feelings that we can ever experience in life. And you said that, believe me, it can be eventually controlled and conquered. um, it's not easy to tell people, someone that is being affected by depression, to stay positive. It's never, I think there's never worked that way. But how do you think that we can approach people who are suffering from some sort of mental health, and what do you think is the best way to just be there for them, and to make sure that uh, they get the idea or the message out there, like, to tell them that there's hope out there.
Yeah, honestly, like it's one of those things where if you recommend solutions to someone, either they take them or they don't take them, right? I mean, it's easy to say, like, what do you have to be upset about? Like, why don't you just go exercise? Or why don't you just go watch a movie? Or why don't you just, make some time for yourself? Or like these kind of suggestions. And sometimes they work for people and sometimes they don't. And I think the main kind of thing that people should strive for is to have open communication. So have that communication with your family, have it with your brothers and sisters, have it with your friends. Even if you send one or two text messages in a week, like it's still something, right? Because nowadays, I wrote this in the book. I mean, I said we're living in such a connected world. Like the world has never been so connected like ever before in history, yet we feel more disconnected from one another, where we all have our phones in our pockets all day long. We all know how to use like the text messaging app, and yet we still don't text our cousins or our family members from time to time because we just make the excuse that we're busy or we got things going on. And because of that lack of communication, you'll never truly know what someone is going through or what troubles they're having in their life, from a social perspective to like an academic perspective. Maybe they're doing poorly in school and they feel like that's their biggest concern. And it's easy to say, you know what, it's just school, who cares? But at the time, like for that person, it might seem like the world to them. So I feel like, having that open communication and that dialogue between your family and your friends and your relatives, it's so important because it's easy to recommend solutions, but I think it's more important to actually talk to each other and actually keep consistent communication, because especially now more than ever, people are so secluded, they're pretty isolated. It's hard to make plans, right? Even for like once a week or once a month, people don't get together as often as they used to. So I feel like the least you can do is phone call somebody or text message somebody.
Right. And I think it's also easy for people to say, like, when you're feeling down, just reach out to someone. But that someone, like, I think, so more often than not, people who decide to take their lives, um, that someone, they just do not have that particular someone to actually reach out to, and people are just being busy, and people are just being so self-absorbed with their own issues and problems, and to the extent that we are not aware of what other people is actually going through. So how can we be more empathetic? Because I think, being that someone that people can actually reach out to. So I think that is the key issue over here that we are facing. Because as much as we are all available, and as much as we are connected to one another, but I think, in terms of question, when it comes to questioning whether we approachable enough for people who are struggling, I think it's a whole lot of, it's a whole lot of different aspect, right?
Yeah, like even not just, even if it's difficult to reach out to somebody, I think just making it clear and known that even you go through some of these hard times sometimes, that allows other people to see, okay, somebody else has already been in my shoes and they go through the same stuff as me. And I mean, like one of the biggest things, especially for the younger generations, is that they see so much content on Instagram and, Twitter and TikTok about like, people living this different lifestyle, and they make too many comparisons with them, with those people, like whether they're a celebrity or an athlete or an actor, actress. We're constantly comparing ourselves to other people around the world and people who are in higher positions, and that makes you feel bad about yourself. So to kind of like also cut that part out of your life too, I think it's a big boost. in terms of your health and your productivity, and having more free time to focus on yourself, and also kind of making your state clear for your family and friends, because if you don't speak up, they'll never know, right? And you can't always expect them to reach out to you either, right? I think one example from my own life was I knew a friend, and he was a classmate of mine in middle school. His name was Prashant, and he was a very vocal guy, very communicative guy, very awesome kind of figure, and a role model. And we went to the same middle school together in grade 8. We were in the same class. And a few years later, when I saw him again while we were like in the college university days, we met up at the local gym near my house, and we had a nice conversation catching up, and we worked out together, and it was like, it was like fun catching up with him. And like, a few weeks later, he hung himself in the hospital that he was admitted to, because nobody was out watching him on the suicide watch. So he had a lot of problems within him that I had no clue about, because when I met him at the gym, it was like we're like talking like two normal buddies, just catching up about life and what's going on, what he's doing for work, what I'm doing for work, like where he's going to school, what I'm doing for school. But you never really know what someone's going through until it actually happens. And then that was one of the big driving factors for me kind of also getting into this topic. I think I did something a while back on my blog, like with a post, but instances like that where you never truly know. And if you just kind of create that open dialogue, open communication, and as well as make yourself clear that, oh, hey, I also go through some of this stuff as well. I think that makes people more comfortable to talk about this stuff. And that's why maybe if someone, picks up my book one day and reads some of the words on these pages, like, okay, so, he wrote about this, like, maybe the main character of Danny, he overcomes this, and, they make some connections with it. And maybe it'll help save a life one day. Who knows? But that's all I can hope for. And I hope that the message gets across like clearly.
Awesome, right. So, yeah, I think that, we all, like you said, I think it's just difficult to actually read what's inside somebody's mind. It's really not easy. And I particularly liked the fact that you pointed out that someone who's actually struggling has to also be willing to share what's troubling them in order for other people to actually be able to render help and eventually help the person to actually come out of the problem that they are facing, because if they do not open up, and it is so difficult to identify that someone is going through a hard time, it's also making it hard for other people to identify and render help. Right. So I think that you really pointed that out well over here. So, and with this book over here, the Seven Doors to Salvation, what's your hope? What do you have to tell your readers out there who might be picking up this book, soon, who probably will be watching this interview later on? What would you like to tell them?
I would just like to say, like, if someone's experiencing a hard time in their life, to just, keep that hope alive within you, because the second that tiny amount of flame goes out, like you start thinking dark thoughts. And if you're ever in that position, have patience, like have hope, because there definitely are people in your life that care about you, that don't want to see you do anything crazy or something that you might regret. If you live with, like, for example, a toxic family member or like a relative, I mean, try to tune them out, because you're always going to have other people that care about you. Like, you shouldn't be wasting your energy on people that aren't putting in energy towards you, right? You should always surround yourself by people that genuinely care about you, people that are looking out for your best interests. And that goes for family, that goes for relatives, that goes for friends. Surround yourself with good people and check up on each other. And if you are going through a difficult time, just keep hope that there's always better times ahead, right? Because like whenever there's something that goes on in our life, whether when we feel guilty, whenever there's a death in the family, Whenever there's like a breakup, whenever your friends leave you, just keep in mind that there's always going to be better times ahead. So there's always going to be someone else for you. There's going to be better friends to be found. There's always going to be different relatives that look out for you. And I want to keep that message of hope alive. And that's why the kind of like the tagline has become of this novel that I keep using is that this story is about like improving your mental health and staying hopeful whenever the weight of the world is pushing you down, because a lot of things that happen in our life that pushes us down is not in our control, right? We don't get to choose who our parents are, or like we don't get to choose certain things that happen in our life, but they just happen to us, right? Your situation might be completely different than my situation with your work or with school or like the way your friend circle is. Everybody's living a different life. Everybody's living a different movie from beginning, middle to the end. So just be mindful, even when you say something to someone, be mindful of it because you have no idea how it might affect them and what they might think of it, right? Sometimes people will say something to someone and it'll be like a small comment and it'll be like a joke or something. But if it's like, a rude comment, that person might remember it for a long time and that might deteriorate your relationship. So keep in mind all the small things, and surround yourself with good people and just keep the hope alive.
Awesome. Right. So, with that, I think we're drawing close to the end of the show today, and I think we have pretty much shared a lot of information regarding your new book, and I think, and especially on mental health. And I hope that with this message out there, people will be able to appreciate your work and support your work and reach out, connect to you as well, and so that they will be able to support your upcoming works as well, on be it your blog posts or probably if you have any other books coming up in the coming years, So, and I'm happy to have you here to chat about your book. And I will be putting this up on YouTube and also on Instagram. And I'll be sure to tag you as well on Instagram. I'll be sending you out the links. And hopefully, with this exposure out there, people will be able to get to know you personally. And the video is going to be available for replay on Facebook right after this is over. So that's going to be like available for viewing immediately. But the one on Instagram and also on YouTube, I'll be putting this up and I'll be sharing the link as well. So it's a pleasure to connect with you and talk to you about mental health, and this is not a non-fiction book and it's a fiction book. That's the interesting part of it. And thank you so much again for joining and for sharing your experiences, for sharing your insights. It's been a wonderful session today talking to you, Jessica. Thank you so much. Until we meet again in hopefully in another episode, I wish you all the best, and I also wish you to stay safe as well, amidst this pandemic. And see you soon, Jessica.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. I appreciate it. And for anybody wondering, the book is out on Amazon in many countries. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. Feel free to go to my blog site. And I appreciate giving me this chance to help spread my word out and to kind of paint a brighter picture as to what my project is about. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. See you again soon.